This is a session on Google Data Studio, and so I've been sort of experimenting with Google Data Studio for the last, although it's been available for 3 months in America, I've been using a method to access it from the UK or any country, so you can edit reports and start visualizing the information and create some really automatic and useful kind of insight, both for reporting SEO performance or reporting paid search or pulling in data from multiple sources. This set of slides is online on SlideShare, and thanks to a sort of Russian GACP for this set of slides. Just before I sort of get going, I'm just going to play a sort of a summary video of what is Google Data Studio. And just to note, it's free to access 5 reports, and each report can have 20 tabs within it. So although Google say it's like a premium product, there's ways of accessing it for free. It may mean you have to have a few different email accounts, but it's ways to kind of get around it. So they will probably set it up so that you can also access it without using a proxy, but we'll worry about that later. So I'll just, the agenda for today is we'll look at the role of visualization and spot the intentional mistake on that one, and how to visualize it using Google Data Studio, and some example reports and the dashboard library that currently exists. And then we've got a quick quiz at the end, so pay attention. I'll try and give out a prize at the end. You can, if you want to jump ahead and answer the quiz now, or get the link to the quiz, you can do. If you check out the link on SlideShare, it's right at the end. So we'll just look at the role of sort of data in decision making. So here's a sort of a quick kind of some examples. So if you kind of show someone just like a table of information, it's difficult for them to kind of digest that or understand it. But if you show someone a picture or an image, the chance of them getting it goes up, like, you were talking about 90% increase if someone sees it rather than actually just seeing the text equivalent. Mainly because we have 70% sensory responses in our eyes, and 50% of the human brain's neurons are involved with visual processing, not kind of thinking about calculations, but actually seeing it. There's stats that say that productivity is also better when you can see what you're doing with the information. A bit like if you've used Tableau and you're kind of playing with data on the fly, it's much more impactful and understandable if you see the actual results whilst you're building those reports. And also there's a much, much higher chance of someone understanding a picture rather than the equivalent text, and understanding it much faster as well. So I'm going to jump into some examples. So while we're talking about visualization, I'm going to show a video, which is a way to sort of visualize this. So this is a quick kind of introduction to Data Studio. Hopefully it's not too loud. This is where I check if I've got sound working. That would be a no. Never muted. Okay, I'm going to cut that one short. So you kind of get a quick snapshot from that as to what you can do. As a quick question for the audience, how many people are using Tableau or similar at the moment? Quite a few, okay. So this is a lot cheaper than Tableau by a kind of factor of 3. So how do you get it for free? So I'll show you an example of what I've been doing at the moment. So I'm using a proxy down here. You can see this one is a free proxy called ProXPN. So for instance, ProXPN. This one, the only free way, it does a free US proxy, but I only actually need Google to think that I'm in America, so it doesn't matter that I'm not using the premium version of this proxy, because US is fine. This particular proxy also restricts the data connection to like 0.5 megabyte or so, which is not ideal, but it means I can then edit a report, so I can build something. You don't need to use a proxy to view a report, it's only to make changes or edit it. Yeah, and you can see that sort of running on there. And so I'm going to whiz through these examples. So they've got some data sets such as who's doing the best in the Olympics, and you can see there's a tabular example and also kind of highlighting of that data, so you can, the same as conditional formatting in Excel, as in what's kind of bubbling up, and it makes a massive difference in what, when you're kind of seeing that information. You can see that the US at the bottom down there is bubbling. I don't think it does have Great Britain on here, so obviously on 27. So pictures kind of speak louder than words, and you can also visualize that using kind of stacked bar charts, which makes it even easier to kind of see. Or if you see it on a map, again, it's much easier to zoom in on something you're familiar with and see what's kind of bubbling. So some of the things you can do with DataStudio at the moment is you can connect different data sources. At the moment, it's kind of tied to the sort of Google stack, so Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and Google Sheets, BigQuery, and they've recently added MySQL and Google Cloud. The connection for Google Search Console is in the pipeline. That's going to happen quite soon. So you can do some pretty cool kind of automatic connectors. Also, if you want to run something like a pivotal chart in Excel where you combine data, so say you want to do like a calculated metric of a sum of a grouping, you can use formulas within Google Data Studio to do that. But think of it a bit like a pivotal chart when it connects to these external sources, because it will try and aggregate that information. And there's a bunch of kind of widgets and charts that they've got available at the moment. And you can also change, there's 2 styles you can do at the moment, it's either white or black, but they've got loads of different fonts and stuff that you can experiment with. And at the moment the access management is 2 types. Either you can do it, three types, either edit or view only. View only, currently you still have to use a Google account even though it's view only. And the other one is, if you want to lock down the data, you can set it so that the person also needs like access to the data source as well. So for instance, on Google Analytics, you have to add someone to Google Analytics in order for them to see the data. So you can set it so that they need access to Google Analytics and also access to DataStudio if you really want to lock it down. The default is just access to DataStudio. So there are always ways of sort of restricting it even further. And it's dead easy to use. Like I've only really been using this for about, I'd say heavily for about a week or so, but it's really simple to pick up. And anyone that's used Tableau, it's similar sort of thing. It's like really simple. As I said, it is part of the kind of Google 360 suite, but you don't need to pay 90K for it. You can get this pretty much for free. And currently you need to use a VPN to access it. There's a restriction of 5 reports per kind of Google login and unlimited number of data sources. And I think I've got unlimited number of tabs per report, but I think it may be actually 20. And then you can, if someone's already created a report, in the same way that you can create a dashboard in Google Analytics, you can literally then replicate that report, change the data source, and it'll suddenly like visualize that information with your data, which is really cool and saves like loads of time, especially if you're an agency and you're doing existing reports and you want to kind of sort of create one set and then replicate it for everything. And it's been around for about 3 months as well. I think I put 2nd of June as when the US public beta was. Cool. Excuse me. So we've got the data sources on here: Google Analytics, AdWords, BigQuery, YouTube I forgot to mention, and MySQL and SQL. It doesn't have the ability to change data on the fly within DataStudio at the moment, so you can't like manipulate it. You've still got to do that within BigQuery or within Google Sheets. Another kind of point to the note at the moment is you can only bind 2 different data sources based off a date at the moment. You can't like bind based off session IDs within DataStudio at the moment. So if you want to do like say your paid search data and also your organic data or other sources, you've got to just use the date key as the joining factor currently. So I've used like VLOOKUPs in Google Sheets to combine 2 different data sources. Cool. I was through that one. When I've been playing with this, there's some notes that you may kind of encounter. The first one is there's a really annoying feature where if you change the currency to say pounds and then you add a new field, it will reset the currency to dollars. So you'll see the pound sign then change to dollars. So it's really annoying. They know about it. It will go away once they fix it. It doesn't actually. They're not doing any manipulation of converting pounds to dollars. It's just a visual thing. And at the moment, quality score from AdWords is not automatically pulled in on the AdWords integration, but it's got everything else on the AdWords API that you can connect to, and they will change it so you don't need to log into a Google account to access it soon. And at the moment, if you want to apply a filter to a graph for a metric, you have to actually create another field for that metric and say page views greater than 1,000 and create like an if statement for it. And then you can actually see that on the metric change on a graph. It's not like native at the moment. And they also haven't got a default for show me the last 4 weeks or last half of the year. You can only do this month or last month or a rolling 4-week period. And we mentioned about joining data only on the date key at the moment. And you can't do sort of ETL on there currently. They don't currently support Google Analytics segments, but you can do data widgets, which work a bit like a table filter in Google Analytics, so that if you say, show me all source equals Google or medium equals CPC, you can use a widget that filters all the information you see on the screen. So you can do that as a workaround. But they are apparently going to add support for segments or advanced segments at some point, but it just doesn't do it at the moment. Cool, okay. So let's kind of jump into some examples. These are some of the best reports that I've seen built so far. When you actually create a new Google Data Studio account, you'll get access to these ones as a starting point. Oops. So let's dive into some examples. Oops. So this one is on DataStudio Gallery.appspot. It's rendered slightly differently on here on this screen. So these are the 6 examples on here. I'm going to jump through to one of the best ones so far, which is this one down here from Data Runs Deep in Australia. It's a pretty cool one. And as I said, you don't need a VPN to view a report. With this one, what they've done is they've taken a story as to how M. Night Shyamalan, whatever his name is, who's like a director. They've got how he has sort of his sort of performance with films. So this was so you can probably see on this screen. So So he was the creator of The Sixth Sense, which had a really good kind of grossing on his first film and a really good Internet Movie Database rating, and also won loads of awards and made him a massive kind of ROI. That's like amazing. So this is like a chart here, some widgets, or so you can then go. So it's part of a story that you're trying to explain. So then what you can do is you can go to the next page. In order to show the next page at the moment, you've actually got to add a widget, which is a link, which then goes to the next kind of page or tab, and then it shows you the rest of the story. And it's all interactive, so you can like hover over like data and fields and see what's happening. And this one here, they've got like a pie chart when they've added the summary or insight into the middle of that, which is pretty cool. And another neat one they've done on here is this one here. They've got a pie chart with Internet Movie kind of rating, and then they've got this field here where they've done a conditional formatting by adding a second kind of field on the top. So there's a really good blog post by Data Runs Deep on how they actually built this report on their blog. So it's quite a kind of interesting and compelling sort of story as to how they've explained it, and the fact that there's not sort of a clear correlation between what the fans like and the revenue that is received from these films. Oops. And there's a summary, and this is what I mean about a widget. So for instance, although you can't do advanced segments, you can do one of these. So if you want to see just information about Sixth Sense, it will update on kind of on the fly. There's no kind of date picker on this selection, but it's then changed all the data that you see about the film on here, which is kind of cool. And then like links to sort of best and worst in terms of revenue, Internet Movie Database, and a box office ROI, and the kind of like Rotten Tomatoes score or kind of review score. So that's pretty cool in terms of what they did on that one. The other ones that are worth kind of mentioning, when you first create a DataStudio account, so at the moment I'm on kind of edit mode because I'm using a proxy. So it will, there's some examples down here which are quite sort of cool. I'm going to jump through to this one. So this is the AdWords example that kind of ships with as a default one. So you literally just change your data source on here and then it kind of shows it. It doesn't actually, I've kind of improved this one slightly by pulling in kind of search impression kind of data. But again, it doesn't have quality score, but it looks pretty cool. And it's you've got the date picker at the top, so you can do like this month, last month, or any other kind of date range. And some other ones. This is a chart one. Again, this one's a demo that's already there. This is the e-commerce like default one that ships with the product at the moment. It does, if you've got enhanced e-commerce enabled, it shows the add to basket rate down here and then visualizes it with conditional formatting, which is pretty cool. I've made it slightly better by kind of editing. I've got one here where I've added, conversion rate and revenue per product, which was kind of missing on their basic example. And I'll show you, this one is one that I've been experimenting with at the moment. This is a lead gen one. Oops. Yeah, okay. This one here, I'm pulling impression data from AdWords and organic, or Google Webmaster Tools, pulling impression data from Google Analytics and then doing a calculated metric for blended CTR. And then I'm breaking out number of leads from data pulled from Google Analytics. So this is for a lead gen site. And again, you've got a date picker on that one. Similar one, this is kind of the next evolution of that chart or report, where I've tried to kind of drill down or explain certain bits in a kind of clearer to see way. So again, make kind of conversion rate and CPL or CPA stand out a bit better. Cool thing about the charts is it natively tells you if it's improved or declined compared to the previous date period. So that's kind of a nice little feature. They don't actually have an arrow at the moment, which is really annoying. So you've got to use like a circle and then a line, but I'm sure they'll change that. This is another example from Daniel Weisenberg, so a publishing dashboard where he's got the earnings or CPM and then kind of revenue from AdSense. I don't think there's a native connector for AdSense yet, but they do have. That may come sort of along the line. This is the revenue data pulled from Google Analytics, AdSense data from the Google Analytics API. Cool. And this one was really interesting. So this one here, you probably see it at the front, maybe not at the back. This one's a fixed time period of first start of the year through to the end of the year. And it's got data so you've got, say, your AdWords impression data up to today. And they've also got data about what they're expecting to see, as in their prediction. So it's kind of tying two different bits together and then visualizing. So that's how you get your prediction data and your actual kind of in the same chart. So then if you've got targets, you can sort of add them into a chart. The other way of adding targets is on bar charts, like this one here, you can actually put like a target as a line in the bar. So that's a kind of feature that's missing from Google Analytics at the moment, but you can easily add that. Another quick example, this is the YouTube example that ships with the product, which is quite cool. And then a TV kind of example. Okay, so any questions on those ones so far? It was Google Sheets. But it was just doing a group by individual date or day, so first, second, third, fourth, etc. And then like a period of a year. So I had like one data set, which is my current data, and then an additional data set or tab that's my predicted data. And then they're being combined into a separate tab in Google Sheets, a bound based off the date range. And then it's able to kind of visualize those two different data sources. Okay. So, I've only got 5 minutes, so we'll jump through to the quiz. So, we'll see how many. So, if you go to that link, it says bit.ly data-studio-quiz. Was that? Have you done it already? Oh, okay.
See how well I did before you did.
Okay. All right. I'll give people like a couple of minutes just to fill that one in. I'm putting it kicked out of the session in a second. So, but I thought one way of like quickly visualizing this is do a survey and then see the results of that straight away. I'll just see who's filled it in already. So if you just enter your name, email address, details, and then how many reports can be created in the free version of Google Data Studio, how many data sources are missing, etc. If you whiz through that, and then when was it the launch date, and then access rights, and then a maximum number of data sources, etc. And I'll just jump to the results. Oops, which... So this is a Google form survey, which is automatically visualized on here. Someone's doing well on 9, a 9 and 8. And so because this data is now exposed in Google Sheets, in effect in live format, I can then connect through to DataStudio and visualize it. So I'm just going to remove that one that I just created a moment ago. And so I've got 4 in here at the moment, so I need to delete one in order to be able to create one. So I'm going to add the results of the quiz. So I'm going to create a new data source, Google Sheets, owned by me, and then the results from the quiz. Connect. And then it's guessed the field names and types based off the first row and the kind of a sample data. So the one we're interested in here is name and then result or score. And so it's now added that as the default source. So if I grab a table, and I'm just going to change the grouping to say group via, whoops. Group via nickname, and then it's automatically come up with a score. So at the moment, Tim, you're on 8 points, joint with Vince and others. So that's as a tabular kind of result, but then you can like also kind of quickly visualize that as a chart. Okay, so you get the idea, and well done to Tim, Vince, and Maria for the top scores. I'll be around to kind of answer questions later, and also if you have any other questions on this, if you check out the Google product forum for questions on DataStudio, there's a bunch of stuff in there, so I'd encourage you to kind of experiment with it and then submit dashboards to the library and check it out. It saves a lot of time with some of the visualizations that you can do. Okay, cheers.